Guyana has come in for high praise for the way it is tackling domestic abuse. It comes from Michelle Giles McDonough, the UNDP resident representative. She was speaking to reporters following this week's release of the UNDP Independent Report, which calls for a shift from state security to citizen security in the Caribbean. She is especially pleased with the introduction of a domestic abuse unit within the country's police force.
That has been done in Guyana recently and seems to be functioning fairly well. Guyana, note though, is also the country right now with the most forward-thinking legislation on domestic violence. Trinidad and Tobago has also made adjustments to its domestic violence legislation, but it doesn't reach as far as where Guyana is. And so maybe that is also a lesson and an example to look at. Both in terms of their legislation and how they deal with the issue, and also the functioning of this new unit, which would have to be evaluated after giving it some time in operation.
Ms. Giles McDonough says it's important then to look at social care crime prevention measures.
What we're finding is that really the locus of the home in many contexts is actually, there are many challenges there. And the question in terms of a preventive mode, especially if you have legislation that doesn't consider domestic violence as something reportable until you're actually assaulted or injured, to try to meet people with services, maybe at the home, at the community level, before it escalates into something like this is an issue. Unfortunately, you've got to reconcile these with issues around legal definitions of crime, because the police clearly can't come into a situation until a crime or an allegation of a crime has been committed.
Police in Trinidad and Tobago intend to crack down on nightclub owners who have been staging curfew parties in areas where curfew restrictions are imposed. Public Information Officer of the police force, Joanne Archie, says that since the curfew was imposed on August the 22nd, some bars and club owners operating in curfew-restricted areas have been advertising and hosting curfew parties. The curfew was initially 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. in 6 areas, but that has since been relaxed to 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. and 11 more areas have been added. Patrons have found ways to party and lime, opting to stay locked inside several nightclubs, bars and casinos, which are in curfew-restricted areas, until those restrictions came to an end the following day. Belize's first Prime Minister George Price, who led the country to independence, is recovering at a private hospital after a fall that led to surgery. Price, 92, underwent surgery to remove a blood clot that doctors said had formed after he fell in his bathtub. A drug rehabilitation counselor in Guyana was gunned down outside the Starbuck market after he intervened in an altercation. Detectives say that investigators are looking for a member of the force who was believed to have been involved in that incident. Unconfirmed reports are that the policeman is the driver of one of the police commanders. Investigators were told that the man attempted to make peace with 3 women who were involved in an altercation at a food stall, but he was shot to his head and the shooter escaped in a car.
Tonight's business report is brought to you by Banks Holdings Limited. Many companies, one goal: excellence.
Good evening, I'm Kent Jerson with the Business Report. Virgin Atlantic has planned a fleet upgrade that is expected to bring more high-end tourists to its Caribbean destinations, including Barbados. The refurbishment and its benefits were revealed at the Caribbean Tourism Organization's State of the Industry Conference in St. Martin. Virgin Atlantic's fleet of leisure aircraft between London and the Caribbean is to be completely refurbished in the summer of 2012. This was disclosed at the CTO conference by the airline's Director of Commercial and Revenue Planning, Edmund Rose. He says the upgrade will include a new onboard layout that will add 14% more premium economy seats to the 747s serving the Caribbean routes, allowing for more higher-end leisure customers. The refurbishment is the first major step in a £100 million product investment announced by Virgin Atlantic following positive financial results. Virgin says the Caribbean market was a key driver in the airline's £18 million profit last year, with load factors to the region of well over 80%. Barbados outperformed all the other islands recording revenue growth of 10% year-on-year. Stressing the importance of the Caribbean market, Mr. Rose says Virgin's 8 destinations in the region contribute over 10% of its passenger revenue. He adds that this winter, the airline is increasing its rotations with extra flights to the region. These will include a second weekly flight between Barbados and Manchester. Manufacturing in Barbados is growing. Executive Director of the Barbados Manufacturers Association, Bobby McKay, says there are over 500 producers and several of them are doing quite well. She was at the time reporting an excellent response to the I Am a Bajan promotion, which is aimed at building the national image of Barbadian products.
The companies that have been really aggressive and gone out banging on doors and looking for work are bringing home work. I have one company that brought home enough work, not only for herself, but for her neighbors. She shared the order that she got for that work, she shared with a couple of the manufacturers. The garment manufacturers are starting to get back some of the uniform work they lost to Trinidad, and they're getting more work in the region. One of my manufacturers just filled a really great order for bathrobes for the U.S. Not for Barbados, for the U.S.
Ms. McKay says local manufacturers need to focus more on exporting to the Caribbean region.
These are people who understand and have similar tastes as us, and we need to be looking at, as I said, the hotel rooms. We could supply uniforms, we could supply toilet paper, we could supply cleaning products. We do already, but we could supply more. We have people right now who are doing furniture for villas in Canwan, for villas in Grenada, for boutique hotels. And these things are going on very quietly, and I want this to be a celebration of the people who work in the plants and the things that they manufacture, because there are products out there that people still don't realize that we manufacture.
And now for a brief look at the stocks, here's a summary of today's trading on some of the region's exchanges.